Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. I'm the commissioner, Steve Barber. And joining me with the Batman shirt, because he is the Batman, he is Delicious Dwaylen Davis.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, Commissioner Gordon, that's his name. Yes, I could not remember. I was like, just.
That's
I
it.
could,
That's it. Yep.
And I'm going to guess that you're wearing the Batman shirt in tribute to the gentleman who passed away during this past week.
Yep. Yep. Kevin Conroy.
Yep. And I'll be honest with you, I did not know. I don't know a lot about like the voice actors and things like that, but
Mm-hmm.
apparently I was like one of the only people who did not know who he was because I'm seeing
Oh,
all sorts
okay.
of tributes, and I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I feel stupid because I didn't know who he was. But I mean, I think that says something to me how much of an effect he had on people because he's got so many people,
Oh, yeah. I
talk about
mean,
the
he's
impact he
like
left.
for me, he's the definitive Batman, even though
Okay,
he didn't do live action, but just the
right.
voice work. It's like he was the first person to use two distinct voices for Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Oh,
So he
okay.
started doing that, and that's where a lot of people kind of carried on from there. But yeah, he was amazing.
Oh, so well, may he rest in peace because I mean, a
Absolutely.
lot of people, are saying how much he's going to be missed. So. But one of the things about Batman, one of the things that makes Dwaylen so cool, along with Batman, is the fact that he's cool, and so that's what we're going to talk about tonight is cool
Cool
wrestlers.
wrestlers. Yep.
And I'm going to give all the credit in the world to Kyle, who actually thought of this topic for us,
Yep.
because he sent me a text, and the text said, question of the week for Thursday's show. And so I said, you know what, we're going to go beyond just a question, and accompanying his text is a picture, and I sent it to you of Magnum and Dusty wearing fur coats.
Hmm.
And he said, "Have you and Dwaylen ever been Dusty and Magnum fur coat cool?" And I just sent back
No.
the emoji like, hmm. And he said it could be a good story. I'm like, I agree. I said it to you, I'm like, you know what? There's been a lot of cool wrestlers, so we
Hmm.
could do a show based on that and strike while the iron's hot. So like I said,
Yeah.
got to give some shout outs to Kyle because he came up with the topic for this week, and and also he did answer some other questions. I don't know if you saw when I posted the link the other day, and we were remember how we were talking
Hmm.
about the setup record,
Yeah.
and I said we'll have to ask Kyle because he is the expert, and yeah, he knew what the actual
Yeah.
setup
I
record
saw
now,
that.
and I was
Yeah.
like, whoo, let me find because I should have had this up and ready, and I apologize for that. Let's see where are my notifications. There it is. Angelo Poffo did 6,033, 4 hours 10 minutes. He said, but the current record is held by Skip Chase from 2013, who did 100,912 in 24 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then he said some dude did 2,900 plus in an hour, which is ridiculous. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, and he said there's a guy named Matt Winning. He said he's near. He said he's near you. I'm assuming he's talking about me. Squatted 500 pounds for 24 consecutive reps.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, you know, and because Kyle can push up some numbers,
Hmm.
and I can't find his numbers right now, but I've seen his stats before, and I'm just sitting here just in awe. Like, I mean, I could push up 1,000 pounds, just not at one time. you
Right.
know,
Right.
I could push up like a
Give you two.
pound.
I can give you 200. I can give you 200 5 times, but
Yeah, you know, and I'm not talking like five consecutive times. I'm talking like push it up. All right, let me go sit down for a little bit, come back, get it
let me get,
again. All
let me,
right,
yeah, let me get a snack and then I'll be right back.
yeah. So, so I mean, yeah, we give some props out to people because that's something that
Hmm.
yeah we can't do. So give a shout out to all them who can do it.
Yeah.
Uh, but speaking of shout outs, I'm going to give some shout outs to people after I give our contact and listing info, which is if you want to email us, it's armchairbookingpodcast at gmail.com. If you want to hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/armchairbookingpodcast. You can also find us on Instagram at armchairbookingpodcast. Find us on Twitter at bookingarmchair. You find us on TikTok at armchairbooking. You can find us on YouTube. This is the only video platform we know of that we're on. But you can, on as far as audio platform goes, we're just about every audio platform you can think of. If we're not there, let one of us know. We would do whatever we can to get ourselves added. You find our merch at tpublic.com/user/armchair-booking-podcast. You can also find Dwaylen on Twitter at fat_daddy73. You can also find his social media because talking about Fat Daddy. Well, he's Fat Daddy along with Big Mama, and they have a YouTube channel and a TikTok channel of their own.
Yep.
And you can find my other podcast called just Cubicle Chat and also any audio platform at cubicle_chat on Twitter and facebook.com/cubicle chat podcast. And while we're on the subject of the audio platforms and giving ratings, if you use Apple Podcasts, go on there, give us a 5-star rating, give us a review. That kind of helps with the algorithm, so it actually gets more people to notice us. It pushes up to a podcast you may want to see. Yeah. Or you can also do that on Spotify. Or if you don't have Apple, if you don't have any Apple products, go to your friend's house who does and go on their Apple product.
Yeah.
So use their iPhone, use their iPad, use both. Give us a 5-star review, give us a rating. And I have to admit, I stole that idea. You know who I stole it from? Ted. Ted's a genius. He thought about that. And he's been talking about it. I'm like, you know what? I got to steal that. So now I got to give Ted credit. I'm giving a lot of people credit because you know what? They earn some credit.
Yeah.
And Ted, if you listen to this podcast enough, how we feel about Ted. We have a lot of respect for him because
absolutely
he is really like the mayor of wrestling podcast town, city, whatever you want to call it, the wrestling podcast community. Ted is really, he should be the de facto leader of it. And even though he'll probably tell you, no, I don't. But, there's a reason why his podcast is trending #1 in Antarctica. He's doing meet and greets down there, sometime in December, as long as he gets his helicopter back up and running again.
Right.
And, but also some other shout outs. We have been talking with some guys from the Wrestling Society podcast. And I listened to theirs, very first episode I listened to a couple of days ago, and they have a pretty good product. These guys are very knowledgeable, and they sound kind of like us because what they were talking about, I'm like,
okay.
Yeah, we definitely got to do some collabing with them, try to figure out when we can have the money. Because one of the guys named Bear, he's actually contacted us through the email. So yes, we do check our email. I'll tell you that right now. It's always up on my computer and it's always on my phone. Anytime an email comes in, I will get a notification, no matter what. Even spam, because I've been getting spam and things like that in my email. Got a thing for Best Buy, the Geek Squad saying, "Hey, your renewal's coming up." I'm like, I don't have anything with you.
I don't have a renewal. So.
Yeah, and then I looked it up, and sure enough, there's a scam that's been going around. So, but also Wrestling with the Truth. We are scheduled to be on their podcast actually here, dude. That's in
a little over. Yeah.
Week. Yeah. You froze up there for a second, by the way. Yeah, your video is getting kind of choppy a little bit. Just want to let you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So but yeah, a little over and the show will be airing here in a little less than 2 weeks. So a little less than that is when we're going to be recording.
Right.
But they actually altered their normal recording schedule for us, so at a time when we can show up on it, which we are very grateful for. Also, the Dad World Order podcast, some other guys that they've been giving us shout outs, and we got to give them shout outs. They are actually going to be recording here in about 5 minutes because it is 8:55 Eastern time. They are going live on YouTube here at 9:00.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're another podcast. They actually record live through StreamYard straight to YouTube. the Wrestling Society, from what I'm gathering, they also record live.
Hmm.
Um, and kind of like the way TNC Sports Talk was doing.
Yeah.
Um, and I know he's on hiatus right now. I don't know what the full scope of that is. I'll have to ask him because he did hit me up yesterday. He had a wrestling question for me. He was talking about injuries.
Oh, okay.
So he said, is there a reason to panic? I'm like, no. And I said, and he was asking, was there anything they're trying to do to prevent the injuries? I'm like, you can slow down injuries. You're never going to be able to prevent
No,
injuries in wrestling. I mean, it's
no.
just the nature of the game. I mean, you now do what you can to try to lessen them, um, but you're always
Yeah.
going to. I mean, you'll have the freak injuries, kind of like. Do you remember a few years ago when, let's see, Seth Rollins got hurt, Cena was hurt. I mean, a whole bunch of them all got
Yes.
hurt, and it was all freak
Yeah.
injuries.
Hmm.
I mean, it just happens. Like, was it Rollins? He just stepped, and all of a sudden, his ankle just buckled under him.
Yeah.
So, and then right about the same time as well, I think it was Rollins who made Cena's nose look kind of like a C. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah. That he took a knee to the face, and
Hey, dude, you're frozen. I'm gonna pause it real quick. All right, and we are back after we had to fix a real small technical issue, and then we've kind of figured out some things are just out of our control. So
yeah. Yeah.
um, when your internet provider says, "Yeah, we fixed that issue outside," and well, it's not
Yeah.
completely,
Apparently,
but
they did not.
yeah,
Yeah.
but we are making do because this is still fine. This is definitely not the worst time we've ever had recording. We had to scrap an entire show one time
No. No. Yeah.
and that one was bad. That one was real
Yeah. That
bad.
was really bad.
But you know what? This internet's better than having the farm vehicle come by and snag your cable and
That
leave
is
you
true.
without, yeah, and leave you without service for 4 days. But our subject is cool wrestlers, and I have to answer Kyle's question first. I've never been Magnum or Dusty Fur Coat cool.
Yeah. I've never been that cool. I've been chess club cool, but never fur coat cool.
Dude, not just
See,
chess
we've
club,
been chess club. Yeah.
chess club officers.
Exactly. See, Dusty and Magnum can't say that. So
And you know what? I was cool enough. I could drive in your neighborhood and nobody bothered me.
that's true. That's very true.
Well, my car was also kind of beat up too, and nobody bothers somebody in a beat up car. So, yeah,
Nova.
yeah, the Nova, the Hoopty. That's what everybody called it. Even my mom started calling it the Hoopty. She never even heard the song, and she started calling it the Hoopty. Um, so, um, but when you think of a cool wrestler, and I just want a fur coat. By the way, I don't think I'd ever wear a fur coat anyway, just because I'm not a fur person. I just not.
Yeah.
If somebody else wants to wear them, hey, fine. I just that they just look bulky. They look hot. I'm like,
Yeah, they
no.
look hot. Yeah.
And as soon as I put it on, well, it would no longer be cool anyway. So
Yeah. I'd put it on and then be like, oh,
yeah, they're like,
no,
yeah,
nobody's gonna wear that.
yeah, that trend's over now.
Yeah.
So, but when you think of cool wrestlers, who do you think of like immediately or pretty close to immediately? And what's kind of your criteria for being cool?
Just the wrestler that I think of immediately is Scott Hall. For me, there was no cooler. I mean, he was the definition of cool. Like just the way he carried himself, composure, because he was in the ring in WCW cutting a promo, and a fan threw like a cup of water, beer, soda, something, and it hit Scott Hall in the head, and all he did was smooth his hair back and never broke character, never missed a beat, never missed a line, anything. Just smoothed his hair back like it was just a normal occurrence and went right on. And it's like, yeah. if I thought he was cool when he was Razor Ramon, once he was Scott Hall and was being like himself, it's like, yeah, he's cool.
One of the things, because WCW during the NWO period, there for those
Hmm.
couple of years, I mean, it's like every match, the fans were throwing stuff in the ring.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
was, I mean, it could be anything from like, cups of some kind of liquid
Hmm.
to batteries, which are dangerous, by the way,
Yeah.
very dangerous, to
Yes.
food, to whatever. One of the funniest things I ever saw, and I remember I was in Maryland watching this. They were in probably Milwaukee, and of course, everybody in Milwaukee is big fans of Dwalen's favorite NFL team, and that'd
That's
be
right. Green
that'd
Bay
be
Packers.
Green Bay Packers. And what does every Green Bay Packer have in their possession? It may be in their closet when it's not an NFL season, but a certain headpiece that
Yep.
looks like, yeah, a
The cheese head.
cheese head.
Big wedge of cheese. Yep.
Yeah. And somebody threw some cheese heads at Scott Hall and Randy Savage, and they were painted silver, which I didn't understand the whole painted silver. They threw them at
Yeah.
them, and they got them, and they were walking down the aisle. They got them. Both of them, Savage and Scott Hall, just put the cheese heads on and just kept walking. and and I remember watching that, and my roommate. I mean, he normally was working during this time, but he was
Mhm.
actually home during that, and he starts laughing. It wasn't even a wrestling fan. He even thought that was funny.
Randy Savage is another one that I always thought was cool. Like my favorite version of Randy Savage is the Macho King era, where it was like you could tell he was just having fun with it and just was so ridiculous but so cool at the same time because he just nobody else could have pulled that off but Randy
No,
Savage. You know, the crown that said macho on it, and it was just so good. It was just so cool.
and I think part of the criteria for being like a cool wrestler is
Mhm.
not caring.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it comes
Yeah,
down to it.
just not
Yeah, not caring.
yeah, because it's like if you know not caring what the fans what fans think, or really not caring what anybody thinks, just being yourself and saying what's on your mind.
Yeah, and Shawn Michaels is another one. I think for the most part, everybody say, "Oh yeah, Shawn Michaels was kind of a cool wrestler." Um, but he actually mentions like one of his favorite wrestlers when he was growing up
Mhm.
was or just getting into wrestling really was Tully Blanchard.
Yes, he
Yeah.
said that was the first cool bad guy that he
Yep.
saw in wrestling. Yeah, and Tully
And
was. I mean, yeah, Tully was cool, and like he could be just you know $1,000 suits and jewelry with the woman with baby doll on his arm, and just be all clean cut. And then the next thing you see him is in a bunkhouse brawl with jeans and boots and leather strap, beating somebody up. So
yeah, and scraping like the boot spurs across somebody's forehead.
yes, yes.
and um but I don't know if Carlito, I don't know if I think he's cool. And
No, I never did. No, I
even
mean,
though,
excellent wrestler, but no, I
yeah,
never thought he was cool.
but he spits in the face of those who aren't cool.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm also thinking, dude, that's not cool to spit in somebody's face. Um, especially when he's doing it with like an apple. He's biting an apple, then and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's unhygienic. You know, they could be sick already. You don't know. I mean, come on, dude. Be a little more respectful of them. Come on.
Yeah.
Think about hygiene, especially
Hygiene people.
especially yeah. I mean, you're already worried about staph infection in the ring. Now the dude's got to worry about somebody's saliva all over his face from you spitting
Yeah.
apple all over him. So um, but you know some of these other somebody who can just pull off everything and just kind of do it, not just a little bit either. We're talking like really pull it off. That's why I think Chris Jericho has to fall into that category.
Absolutely. I mean, just anything you give, anything that he's ever been given in wrestling, regardless of how ridiculous it might be, he's always made it work and always made it, interesting and, you know, always made it seem cool. Um, who else is going to get a list over
Yeah,
but Chris Jericho? I mean, he clicked a pen and said, "You're on the list," and the crowd just erupted. I mean, who else is getting that over? And I mean, just the way he's able to reinvent himself. I mean, he's
hmm
50, 51, I think,
something like that. Yeah,
and 50, 51 years old, and he is still reinventing himself. And it's still working. And if you want to know how cool Chris Jericho is, watch any AEW show that he's on because 15,000 people are singing his theme song when he comes out. Even
and
after the music has stopped,
they're
they're
still singing.
finishing it out. Yeah,
And when we say it's his theme song, it's his theme song.
his. It's his band Fozzy. He's singing lead. That's him
Yeah,
singing the song.
I mean,
He's
and that's
literally singing himself to the ring.
yeah. I mean, and
how
you
many?
may,
How much cooler can you be than sing yourself to the ring?
and not just that, but I mean, it's like one of the things you may think you're cool, but you're not Chris Jericho walking to the ring, 15,000 people singing your song to you, even though you're a bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he's a heel right now, and fans are still singing that song. I mean, they'll boo him as soon as they're done
Yeah,
singing, but they're singing that song first.
yeah. And I think that somebody who had the potential to be kind of like that, because another actually talented musician was Elias.
Yes. Yeah. They just that was during the Vince McMahon regime, and he just kind of it was going good. He was over, especially as a heel. He was over. Then they turned around and make him face for no reason, and then the gimmick just didn't work as a face.
It didn't.
The gimmick works better as a heel. Um, I know everybody can't be the cool heel in wrestling. That's like a trope that's been beat to death. But Elias, excuse me, Elias was a cool heel. He always got a reaction out of the fans. They always interacted with him, even though he was a
Mm-hmm.
heel. When he said WWE stands for Walk with
Walk with
Elias,
Elias.
the entire arena always repeated it.
And that's a case of they should have just said, you know what, leave him as a heel. They'll say walk with Elias. They'll let him. I mean, he comes up with them songs that he would do, just
Yeah.
off the top of his head because he's playing the guitar. Now I did cry like every time he busted the guitar up. I'm like, no, don't, because I'm looking. Those were not cheap guitars. I mean, those were like Fenders. So I, you know,
Sorry. Drink went down wrong. Oh, okay.
all right, there, Coffee Smurf, you ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, Dwaylen started smurfing. I don't know what's going on there. So, um, but yeah, he would break those guitars, and they're probably a good $800,000 a piece. But this
Oh
is
yeah, those
after.
weren't Jeff Jarrett specials.
No, they weren't. And he would come up with those songs. Sometimes, I mean, he probably thought about the songs during the afternoon. I mean, or maybe a
Yeah, I'm
couple
sure.
of hit, but I mean, they weren't written by anybody in WWE. Those were
No.
his.
Yep.
And one of my favorite Elias moments was when they were in Australia for that one pay per view. I don't know why they haven't gone back because that was a
Uh, Super Showdown.
Super Showdown. Okay, yeah, I couldn't
Yeah.
remember the name of it, but on the acoustic guitar, he's playing down there. He starts playing Thunderstruck.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he started the. Now, if you watch the replay now, you won't see that because of copyright.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You can find it on YouTube. I mean, you have to just do a search for it because somebody is always,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
somebody's always got their phone out recording. So
yep. So you can find like that, but WWE that you're not going to find that part of the network. But I was watching it live when it happened, and of course, I mean, I was marking out because I mean, for those of I've always said that how Dwaylen and I met. We were both wearing the same ACDC shirt.
yep.
So now I don't know. I mean, honestly, I mean, I will always have to kind of. I'm in that little bit. Okay, I don't know if that was like the exact day we met, because I think we may have already been hanging out, but there were some times where we both came to school wearing the same
Yeah.
ACDC shirt,
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
and people are like, "Oh, you're all brothers." I'm like, "Yep, we sure are. We look just like.
Like
That's us."
that's right. That's right.
Yep. And don't make me break out, the picture with the chest picture with the flat top haircut. You know, well, it is.
Yeah.
One of us had a flat top, the other one had a mullet. I'm not
Yeah.
saying which one had which. Y'all just need to kind of use your imaginations. You know,
It was the style back then, folks.
yeah. So leave us alone. But and now I got well the skullet, and well Dwayne's got the shaved head, so
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just
I got tired of it, so I just shaved
yeah. I mean, we got tired of people calling us kid and play. Um,
it.
which kind of off topic. Last night on the cubicle chat, when we're recording that, we did an episode with hip hop and rap stars who transition into acting.
Okay.
And we had in Kid and Play, of course,
Hmm.
they did that. Of course, I also did have to mention. You realize in the House Party movies, Kid and Play played Kid and Play. I mean, they just play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if I'd really include were they really
Yeah.
acting; they were being
Yeah.
themselves. Um, but Ice Cube, yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't realize how many movies he had done.
Oh yeah, he's done a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah. But the one who's been in the most appearances was actually Snoop because
Okay.
he's done so many cameos in different movies.
Hmm.
And he's actually had some parts because it was like, and Mikey, my co-host for that, he couldn't remember the name of it, and I was like, yeah, there was a movie where he was one of the main characters. I finally found it was a Baby Boy.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so um, but Snoop is he's also cool by the way, and he's also been involved in wrestling, and
That's right.
he has a cousin who is actually Snoop Hall of Fame Snoop now.
Yeah.
Whether Snoop needs to be in the WWE Hall of Fame,
I don't
because
know.
what did he contribute to wrestling?
Yeah. Uh, Nothing. I mean,
Nothing. I
really. I
mean,
mean,
yeah, he came to one WrestleMania, sang a song, and um, Sasha Banks is his cousin in real life.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, um, but the celebrity wing of the WWE Hall of Fame, that's some people, yes, some people really
Like the early inductees, yes, because they helped, shape
they,
wrestling in the 80s.
yep,
You At why Cindy Lauper's not in there, I don't know. But
yeah. Cindy Lauper not being in the Hall of Fame is an absolute crime. I mean, because
yes.
you're talking pre WrestleMania,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
so
And she gets like no credit.
and one of the things about being cool is you probably have to be over. So back then, Cindy Lauper was way over.
Yeah. I mean, she was literally one of the biggest stars in the world.
Yeah, I mean, even I wasn't like a huge fan of her. I mean, it's just not my style. But I mean, I always
Hmm.
respected the fact that I mean she was um, doing it and doing it well.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as the wrestlers back then, would you consider Roddy Piper to be a cool wrestler?
Uh, um, Early, like WrestleMania and a few years after that, Roddy Piper, yes. Later day Roddy Piper, not so much.
Okay, yeah, because I was sitting there thinking another. if you want to call it kind of a criteria, they either would make you want to be a wrestler or you'd want to be like pattern yourself after them.
Yeah,
And Piper, I mean, first of all, he was one of a kind. I mean, he's, you know, um, kicking ass, excuse me for the language, but I mean, it kind of fits with the scene for that one. But kicking
yeah,
ass and chewing bubble gum, and he's almost out of
yeah.
bubble gum.
I mean, um, he's the one who said, "Don't throw rocks at a man with a machine gun."
Yeah,
So, I mean, that version of Piper, yeah, I would say he was cool. But later on, I just feel like he was kind of got to be a parody of himself. It was like, not so much of a fan anymore.
kind of like, well, the other, when he was WWE Tag Team Champion, the other half of that team.
Yep, Nature Boy Ric Flair. Yep,
Um,
who at one time was one of the coolest wrestlers in the world. I mean, and he, responsible for a lot of wrestlers getting into wrestling. A lot
mhm.
of people pattern themselves after Ric Flair. Just the persona that he had with the the wealthy, egotistical business tycoon, and he had no issue telling you how great he was. And one of my favorite promos is when Flair's pointing at the belt, and he said, "This lives at my house, and it's going to take a great man and a great wrestler to take it from me." And I was
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, that's awesome."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and he says my shoes cost more than your house,
Your house, yeah,
and I'm always going, man, that's a lot of money to spend on some shoes.
yeah.
But
Like when what Ted had on, his show talking about spilt liquor,
yeah,
hard times. Flair had the promo where he was like, "I've spent more money." He's like, "I got a guy out here calling my name when I've spent more money on spilt liquor from bars from one end of the world to the next than you made."
and the scariest part, that was
He's
true.
right. That was so true. Yeah. There was not a
Yeah,
lot to be told in what he said.
and that was part of his persona.
Yeah.
And
He was
but I mean,
slick Rick.
yes, Slick Rick, and I'm not talking about once upon a time not long ago. I'm not talking about
Mm.
that Slick Rick with the eye patch.
Talking about Space Mountain.
I'm talking about Space Mountain, Ric Flair, Richard Fleer, also known as Ric Flair.
Yep.
The man who made woo, or you say woo, everybody knows who it is.
Yep.
You go to an indie show and you see somebody lay a chop that you can just hear in every corner of the building, and the
Yeah.
audience, there may be 10 people in the audience, nine of them go woo, and the other one go, what are you
That's
doing?
like in WWE when Walter throws his chops, you hear the woos because he's
Yeah.
like caving guys' chest in when he hits those chops.
And the wrestlers who are getting that reaction, they understand it's not an insult. I mean,
Oh
that's
no,
actually it's a
no.
compliment.
That's one of the greatest compliments that a wrestler can get if people are associating what they're doing with Ric Flair.
Hmm. and and somebody else who dare I forget them because one of their nicknames, the word cool was in it. Big Daddy Cool, Diesel,
Diesel, Kevin
Kevin
Nash.
Nash, Big
Yes.
Sexy.
Kevin
Uh,
Nash was just Kevin Nash was like the high school jock that, you know, a lot of people liked and a lot of people couldn't stand because he was just that cool. He didn't have to do anything, just his presence alone was cool enough. And that's how Kevin Nash was. He was like that when he was Diesel, but especially when he was just Kevin Nash in especially the early NWO days. It was just like he didn't have to say anything. All he had to do was step over the top rope, get in the ring, and throw up the too sweet, and the crowd was losing their mind.
yeah, and then they would start booing him. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, um, because when he and Scott Hall, when they first showed up,
Hmm.
and you can go watch all the old videos. I mean, it turned the wrestling world upside down.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because nobody knew if they were. People assumed that they were sent by Vince to disrupt WCW, and because like there was no, you know, internet wasn't a big thing. There was no Twitter, so information wasn't readily available. So nobody knew. Nope, their contracts are up, and they left.
And that even got to the point they actually had to ask them on one of the shows, "Were you sent here by Vince McMahon?" And they both said, "Nope."
Yeah, yeah. Were you sent here? Were you sent here from up north? Nope.
And now the NWO thing, I mean, that's well, 2/3 of the NWO were cool. I
Okay.
never thought Hulk Hogan was cool.
I never thought it was cool. When he was a heel in NWO, he was hilarious and he entertained me. That's the only time Hogan's
He
ever
was
entertained me.
entertaining. I mean, he was
When
goofy,
yeah, he was the goofy over the top heel, but it entertained me. And like I said, that's the only time Hogan's ever entertained me is when he was heel. But he wasn't cool. Like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, the outsiders were cool. Hogan
yeah.
was just goofy.
And he's playing the belt like it's a guitar. I was
Now
like,
that always cracked me up.
yeah, and,
Especially the faces he would make when he was
you
doing it.
know,
Yeah,
gotta get the pouty lips to,
yeah.
which by the way, that is a musician face. I mean, I'm a musician, I can take it. And by the way, if somebody, another musician is watching you play your instrument and they do that face, that's also a compliment. Like,
Mm.
okay.
It's
And they
like,
make
all
that,
right.
yeah. And the fact that Hogan is actually also a musician,
Yeah,
he
yeah, that's
played,
true.
well, he had played bass in quite a few bands around the Tampa area. And I guess up in Minnesota when he was in AWA, he would actually, like in some of the local bars, he would play like with some of those bands,
Hmm.
nights either after the show or uh, on the nights where he wasn't wrestling. And he also plays guitar. I mean, there's pictures of him, playing guitar. And there's always memes attached to it. One of them I think I sent to you a long time ago. Before there's a video that went around of Hogan spouting his
Yeah.
mouth off, which totally deflated everybody's opinion of him.
Hmm.
Um, but it has him playing. He's got a guitar. He's like, anyway, brother, here's Wonderwall. And that was,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, to me, it's still funny,
Yeah.
But if Hogan was cool when that video came out, that just
Yeah. Just boop, you know?
because it's like, dude, I mean, this is not some immature like 20-year-old.
No.
This is somebody who's by this point he was in his 50s,
50s. Yeah. Yeah.
and
He yeah, he knew better.
yeah, I mean, not that a 20-year-old, not that it gives him an excuse, but you can, they're still young, and you can
There's a
still,
learning curve there
yeah.
with a 20-year-old, but when you're in your 50s, it's like, no, no.
But I'm trying to think some of the other ones because Gina Hernandez, late Gina Hernandez, was cool
Yeah. Yeah. He
because he was,
was.
yeah, he was being booed, but the women still loved him, and because
Oh, yeah.
he had that swagger, he could just carry himself, and he could go in the ring.
Yeah.
Um,
You know who we're forgetting? The Rock,
oh,
the great one. I mean, how much cooler of a wrestler is there than The Rock?
because he's once again, The Rock is somebody. Even if you were not a wrestling fan, people would imitate the. If you smell what I'm, it's
Yeah.
like
And the eyebrow.
the
And
eyebrow, which I
yeah.
could never do. By the way, I tried doing it, and it's like it doesn't work for me. Um, but to go from this goofy, oh gee shucks, the Rocky
Yeah.
Maivia character
Yep.
with the hair that was going and shaved his head or cut it like extremely short,
Yeah.
and he said, "Die, Rocky, die." I mean, he mocked the fans,
Hmm. Yep.
and after that, they're like, "Oh, we like him now," even though now they're
Yeah.
supposed to be
And
booing him.
yeah,
So,
and I mean, and he was a heel, but he was so over because every fan was just waiting to hear what he had to say. because I mean
Yeah,
he had like the greatest ability to just destroy an opponent on the microphone before
yeah.
they ever touched in the ring. I mean, he destroyed Billy Gunn's King of the Ring push with one promo. That's all it took. And Billy
Oh,
Gunn's
what did he say?
he said he pretended to be Billy Gunn talking to God. And it's like, God, my name is Billy. And then he's like, and God's like, it doesn't matter what your name is. And like that one promo just killed Billy Gunn's push because Billy Gunn never had a response to that. And it was just like, well, that's over.
Yeah, I
Because they were
mean,
trying to push Billy Gunn to the main event. And it was like, after that promo, it was like, well, that's not going to work. Fans aren't going to take him seriously now that The Rock's
nope.
destroyed him on the mic.
Um, just and The Rock is one of the few that they allowed to just come up with his own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure
And
he just got the bullet points and then he just did his own thing.
sometimes I think they gave him bullet points, and he just did his own thing regardless of the bullet points.
Yeah, he did his
Um,
own thing and then threw in, "Oh, I want the title," and then went back to insulting people.
well, even like one of the last times he did an appearance on Raw, and they had that crew at ringside. They had the ringside seats, and they were dressed up like Hogan, Savage, and some other
Yeah,
people, and
keep them off camera.
keep them off camera. What does The Rock
Yeah,
do? He goes right out to them. Get the
he
camera on these
yeah
guys.
yeah, and the camera had to follow because it was The Rock. So then these are Vince was like pulling his hair out backstage, and The Rock's like, yeah, oh well, you
But
need me more than I need you.
he
So
had The Rock got to the or Dwayne Johnson. I mean, now
yeah,
I don't even think in his movies they bill him as Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Now it's just Dwayne Johnson.
yep,
And I think one of the things about him though, and I think this would kind of go for anybody who's considered to be cool, you had to have paid your dues first. You can't just walk
exactly.
in and declare yourself to be cool because someone says, I'm cool, man. I'm like, no, you're not. As soon as you told me
Yeah,
you're cool, that means that you're not.
yeah, you've got rookies or like guys that are like 4 or 5 years in that you know want to be like we're cool, I'm cool, and it's like no, not yet. You might be, but no, you haven't been around long enough to be cool.
Right. I mean, now you may have a cocky character,
Yeah,
and I'm good with that. I mean, you got to have some that are like
yeah,
that. Because even in NWF, like Adam Swayze,
yeah,
very very cocky. Carson Drake, very cocky. Both those guys are also very good.
yep.
And
Adam Swayze is going for the unified title at the anniversary show.
that's right, he is.
Yep, that's it.
Uh,
He said, I saw on Facebook he posted that's the only championship in the NWF that has eluded him.
okay. And so he was tri-state champion before I started watching that, I'm guessing. Of course, I mean, I've seen him as tag team champion. I've seen him as the heavyweight champion.
Hmm.
Um, so if he's now going for the unified belt, yeah, he had to have been the tri-state at some point.
Yep.
Um, so he's going against uh Beck, yeah, Beck Reeves.
Yep.
Yeah, because I was trying to think. No, and tri-state is swinger. That's right. I had to think about that.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Um, but both Adam Swayze and Carson Drake. I mean, I've actually talked to both of them outside the ring. I've had
Hmm.
Adam Swayze on here. Unfortunately, you weren't able to make that interview. I mean, you missed out on
Yeah.
a great one. But I know you've either seen it or listened to it. I mean,
I went back and listened to it. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed that. It was a great interview.
dude, another reason why I think Swayze, he will be kind of that cool character. The only thing holding him back is his size, and that's not something he can help. But he
Hmm.
he more than makes up for that with his talent. The man lives and breathes wrestling. I mean,
Yeah.
he studies old
And
stuff. I mean,
and
yeah,
and like nowadays, like his size isn't really a detriment now because wrestling's not the land of the giants like it
right.
used to be. I mean, you still got a few bigger guys, but smaller guys are getting their more opportunities now to show what they
Yep.
can do.
And I think that uh, I think you will see him, move into the bigger companies.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he'll have the tryout, the AEW darks and things like that.
Hmm.
But I think you will eventually see him in one of the bigger companies. And I think the same thing with Carson Drake. First time I saw him, I texted you. I was like, "Dude, you got to check this guy
Yeah.
out."
Yeah.
Carson Drake, another guy I've talked to him outside the ring, a super nice guy outside the ring, by the way. And Adam Swayze, same thing. You know, but um, but I think they're both going to be successful because they get it.
Yeah.
They get how it's
Yeah.
supposed to work, and that's why some of the ones who walk in, "Hey, I'm cool," you don't get it, and that's
You're
why
right.
you're.
Exactly.
Um, Man, I just totally had a train of thought, and it turned into a caboose all of a sudden with no engine.
Just
So
went off the tracks, huh?
it did. I mean, and that's not cool at all when that happens. Um, but just real quick, while it's on my mind, I got to give another shout out to another podcast called the Mixtape Podcast
Yes.
because their latest episode, they're non wrestling podcast, and I actually met the guy, a couple of the guys from there at the Revolution Rising show back in the summertime. And this is, the all women show from the NWF.
Hmm.
The guys, he approached me after the show because they had announced, because I was one of the sponsors for the show. Or, well, I
Right.
say Armchair Booking, the podcast, was a sponsor,
Hmm.
for one show. So they had announced it a couple of times. And of course, I'm, wearing the shirt. At one point, I had a banner trying to get people to come maybe for interviews, and well, that didn't work. But that was, but for a lot of reasons, it didn't work. And I was like, well, I tried.
You
Um,
tried. Yeah.
yeah, I tried it, but they came up to me afterwards, and he actually had a business card. Which, by the way, we need to get business cards, dude. I mean,
Yes, we
like,
do. I
like
told Hope that we need to get some business cards.
yeah, kind of sound like Uncle Rico. Man, we gotta look like we have all the answers, you know. But he was talking to me. He said, "Yeah, you had this podcast," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I was just starting up the Cubicle Chat podcast. And he said, "Okay," because then I told him, "Yeah, kind of similar to
Hmm.
what he had told me his their podcast was." And there's three guys, four guys on theirs. Um, but they do a lot of pop culture. They've had interviews with people like Rhonda Shear from Up All Night. Um,
Okay.
yep. One of the guys from the movie Monster Squad. Um, they just had the bass player from White Zombie. They've had, Art Alexakis from Everclear. I mean, they've had some,
Yeah, they've had some
yeah,
big names.
some big names on there. Well, their latest episode, they were talking about movie soundtracks, like from the 80s, and like songs from those soundtracks. And I had actually, through the armchair, for at Booking Armchair, but the podcast Twitter account, I had actually commented and I said "Footloose" by Kenny Loggins. And well, they mentioned that on the show close to the end. They said, by the way, because they were talking about everybody who could contribute. They said armchair booking, and so I heard, I kind of peeked up. I was like, huh? Did he just say our name? And he said, yeah. He said, Footloose by Kenny Loggins, and he said, just want to uh, he actually mentioned, he said, yeah, he's always been, he's contributed quite a few times, and he has, and he kept saying he because I mean they met me,
Hmm.
so he always says he. I really wish they would say they because I mean, we are two people. That's not a he, that's a they, and that's a
Yeah.
plural.
Yeah.
And but they say, yeah, he's he's commented on this before, and you should really go check out this podcast. It's a wrestling armchair booking wrestling podcast. I mean, he actually gave the full name too, which I really appreciate.
Cool.
Because sometimes then people forget there's the word wrestling you should probably put in there.
Yeah.
Um, but so I really appreciate those guys. The Mixtape Podcast. Go check them out. They actually have their own original song too. Who wants a mixtape? We do. And it sounds like, yeah. I mean, you got to hear it. It sounds like something that Devo would have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. As soon as you hear it, you'd be like, wow, that sounds very
Like
like,
like that early 80s techno
yeah.
sound.
And um, And they talk about the 80s, 90s, just things like that. I mean, but a mixtape, if people who don't know what a mixtape is, well, you're probably not old enough to know what a mixtape is.
Hmm. Yep.
But yeah, go check them out. Also, go check out the Bless Their Hearts podcast. Also, go check out True Crime Cast, because they're the ones that True Crime Cast, and I tweeted because they were with Chris Jericho again, and I made a tweet that actually said, yeah, two of my favorite podcasts that combined with a good collaboration. Chris Jericho, well, the his podcast, Talk is Jericho, actually quote tweeted it and gave it like a fist bump. I'm like, I texted you and I said that just made my weekend.
Yep. It's like,
So you know what, I can just go relax now, you know. Uh, but but we mentioned Jericho, and that's another reason actually why Jericho, I think he is one of the coolest people in the business, because he also does stuff outside the business,
hmm
and it gives the wrestling business a good name when you have somebody
yeah,
who's, yeah, I mean, he does these other
yeah,
things and he does them well, and he brings that fan back to say, okay, by the way, I also do this. This is actually my main thing that
yeah.
I do. And um but I know we're missing a lot of people, and I don't know if that's just a sign that, we're getting old. At least I'm getting old. I don't know.
It's hard. It's hard to get everybody because I'm sure there's some older ones and I'm sure there's some current ones that we're missing, but it's hard to get everybody.
Actually, you know what? I'll throw a name, and he's one third of one of the greatest tag teams ever, and it's a current one. Well, I say current sort of because he got hurt. Big E.
Big, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I like Xavier and Kofi, but Big E just exudes coolness.
Oh yeah, yeah. Big E is definitely the coolest one out of that group. Yeah, he's one of those people that just as soon as he comes on screen, you're just drawn to him, and you're just like, okay, I got to watch this guy.
Yeah, and it is a shame. Have they given any kind of ETA on when he'll
Uh,
be back?
no, there hadn't been any kind of update on it. Last thing that I saw, he's out of the neck brace now, and
That's good.
uh, but there's been no time frame on when he may be able to wrestle again, or if he's going to be able to wrestle again.
Oh, and I remember watching that night when it happened when
Yeah, me too.
um
Mm,
oh, what was his name?
Ridge Holland.
Ridge Holland. Which Ridge Holland is a powerful guy. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I really wish Brock Lesnar would have not started that over the head belly to belly.
Uh-huh.
Because Ridge Holland could probably do that to almost any wrestler in the world, except for Big E, who's 300 pounds of pure muscle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he
And
got
it's like,
he got him
oh,
three-quarters of the way around. The problem is he came down right on his head. So
yeah.
um just a normal belly to belly would have been fine.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of ironic considering that's what Big E, that's one of his moves is
Mm-hmm.
that the regular belly to belly. It's not the
Yeah.
over the head.
Yeah.
And when he came down, I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah. And
And
you instantly knew something was wrong
yeah,
because you could tell just the way his body, his body language, you could just tell something was really wrong.
and they said later on, Rich Holland went and saw him in the hospital room.
Yeah. They said after the show was over, he went and visited Big E in the hospital room, and they said he apologized and everything. And Big E's like, it happens. It's wrestling.
Yeah.
It's a freak thing.
Now, I had Rich Holland not gone to visit him in the hospital room, he probably would
Yeah,
not be
that
on
would have been a
TV.
different thing.
Yeah, he would
Oh no,
not be on TV now.
he probably wouldn't be with the company now
Yep.
because nobody would want to work with him. Because I mean, you hurt somebody, you need to go check on them. That's just a sign of respect.
Hmm. That's what you do. That shows that you take care of each other in the ring,
Hmm.
and because
Exactly.
that's the cool thing to do. To not take
Yeah.
care of somebody, that's not cool.
No, not at all.
Uh, and just like um, when my daughter, when she graduated high school a couple years ago, and we
Hmm.
had, we had a graduation party at the house. I mean, it was all
Right.
outside because it was right after the pandemic started. And well, one of her friends, he also graduated same time. Um, he came over, and his girlfriend, who actually graduated the year before, was with him, and and they're still together now. I mean, they've been together like 4 years now. But she was sitting in a chair, and he's like, "I need a chair," and he just pulled the chair out from under her, and she like fell, and we were all like,
It's like,
"You do that?"
dude.
Like that kind of hand over your mouth kind of laugh, like, "Oh my
Hmm.
god," and I just looked at him, and I was like, "Sean, not cool, dude, not
Yeah.
cool," you know. Um, and but I mean, I think he may have been trying to joke around with her because um,
Hmm.
they're a couple. I mean, and I know they would never. If you saw them together, you'd be like, oh yeah, they're definitely not abusive to each other. He just thought it was funny, and we're like,
Right.
dude, that's not that.
It's
He's
like, that's
learned
not funny.
that's not funny, dude. But um, that's why you gotta look and say, not cool at all,
Yeah.
dude.
No.
but um, but yeah, with all the current ones, because I know we're missing some female wrestlers.
Becky Lynch. Um,
Yep.
Trying to think who
Actually, I'll
else.
throw Bianca in there.
Bianca, Sasha Banks. I know she's not there right now, but definitely cool. Trying to think who else that
By
just.
the way, speaking of Sasha Banks, what am I seeing now? They're saying she may not be coming back now at all.
Well, she owns her own company. I'm not sure what the company does, but she owns
Oh,
her own company and she's filed 4 trademarks, and there's like Mercedes Monet, and then there's Monet Talks, and then there's the Statement Maker. And I wonder if that's like a play off the bank statement, her finisher. And so she
hmm.
may be preparing for life outside WWE.
Oh, so
And
wow.
Mercedes is her real first name.
That's her
So,
real name.
hmm.
Um, wow. And now, I mean, now she's going to get people talking about her,
Hmm.
which is one of the, unless you want this to happen, but one of the worst things that can happen to a wrestler is if people forget about you.
Yep.
And
If nobody's talking about you, then you're, you know, you're out of the spotlight if nobody's talking about
yep, because wrestling is one of those things that,
you.
for the most part, bad attention is still good.
Hmm. Yep.
Yep. If they cheer you in the ring, awesome. If they boo you while you're in the ring, awesome. If they make no
Yeah.
reaction, that means they just don't care.
They just, yeah. If you get silence from a crowd, it's like, no, you're not going to make it.
Oh, but yeah, I'm going to have to give another shout out to Kyle for thinking about this subject
Oh, yeah.
because,
This was a good topic. Yeah.
yep. So thank you, Kyle. And whenever you listen to this, because I know you're listening probably on your way to work, because Kyle has a nice long drive to work, kind of like I fed out. I think his drive is even
Hmm.
longer. And,
Oh,
so he does work out what I do. He listens to the podcast. So
yep.
Kyle, just shoot me a text whenever well, okay. Make sure you're no longer driving. Make sure
When
you're
you shoot the
stopped,
text, yeah.
please, when you shoot the text. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and the only thing I kind of regret is not saying, "Hey, Kyle, get on, come on the show real quick." But I know his nights are always packed, and
Hmm.
I didn't want to try to force him to try to, alter
Yeah.
his schedule at the last moment. So, Kyle, I
Yeah.
do apologize for that because last time he was on the show, we all had a good time. So,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to have him back on here again sometime because that would be cool.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, Next week we might have an interview on Monday. I'm actually in the works for that right now. Um, that's for Monday.
Okay.
and maybe, I mean, we'll have to see. Um,
Yeah.
but obviously, next Thursday is Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Probably not going to have a show that day.
No, no. I think our wives would
Punch us in the
quite.
face.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and I
But
think, my wife would travel there. Your wife would travel here just to punch us in the face.
yes,
Yeah. So,
yes.
so no
Twice.
show. Yeah, twice. I mean, so as it stands right
One
now,
for doing a show on Thanksgiving, and two for having the.
2 for having what? Because you froze up again for a
To,
second.
the second one is for them having to travel to punch us in the face.
Yeah, y'all know how much gas costs right now. You don't want to make somebody travel that far.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, but I am, trying to work an interview for Monday, um, because he was even asking, "Hey, we do the episode. When would you guys release it?" And I said, "Normally, I release it within an hour after we stop recording because I have to edit and get the music
Right.
and everything and the intro music." Which, by the way, for those who have not actually, if you don't actually look at like the show description whenever it comes out, whatever audio platform, or if you're actually watching on YouTube, the name of the song that's on here is actually a song I found um, for free, and the name of the song is "In the Shadows" by someone named Ethan Mixell, Meixsell. It's an instrumental. It sounds kind of metal, and um, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. Go
All
ahead.
right. I say metal, and all of a sudden you started coughing. I was like, oh, I was like, um, but yeah, a lot of good guitar work in the song. But definitely go try to check out, try to find the song, because one of the things, the song is royalty free, which means we got to use it for free as long as we give credit where the
Right.
song comes from. But part of that is they want people to go and listen to them.
Yeah.
So definitely go check them out because the song itself, I mean, I only play like the first minute of the song for the intro and the last minute of the song for the outro. Oh, excuse me. See what you made me do? Pass it on. but um, but yeah, go check that out. Even on the Cubicle Chat, I have a totally different song, which it kind of fits that one more better. Um, yeah, I said more better, and because I
Mhm.
thought this particular song kind of fit this one better.
I got that.
Yeah, um, but I mean, we're always looking for ways, to improve. I mean, if we,
Yeah.
because that was just something I added on there, and I even have more ideas that I'll give to Dwayne. I'm not gonna tell all y'all yet. You'll just hear them whenever they come out. So, and part of that is when we do listen to other podcasts, I get inspiration for some of the things they're doing. I'm like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
like that idea. Just like I stole Ted's thing. I mean, I admit it. He said go to your friend's house, use their iPad. I'm like, you know
Hmm.
what? That's why Ted's a genius, and it just
Yeah.
makes sense. But we all try to help each other out, and that's why I
Yeah.
mentioned like Ted the Hillbilly Hill. The Hill Truth podcast. Go check it out. Go check out Wrestling with the Truth. Go check out Wrestling World with Andrew Boyer, also or Austin Boyer. I'm sorry. He's a big Bray Wyatt fan, but he does his by himself. Go check out the other non-wrestling podcasts, like the Mixtape, True
Hmm.
Crime Cast, bless their hearts. I've been listening to another true crime podcast here lately about a case that happened in the area I live a little over 9 years ago. And I found out about it through a totally different podcast. They advertised this one. And then on episode number 4, they interviewed a guy. He actually works for the sheriff's department. The guy goes to my church.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm like, huh. And I haven't had a chance to
Well.
talk to him yet about it, but I mean, but they're talking about this case, which is still unsolved, by the way.
Hmm.
I've actually thought about sharing that, and I probably will share it on my personal Facebook to say, look, anybody in this area, if y'all remember this case, if you know something, they're
Right.
still trying to solve it. I mean, somebody, um, just a quick synopsis. Somebody shot and killed this 22-year-old pregnant woman,
Hmm.
and they shot her 1-year-old daughter,
Oh
and
Lord.
she survived. Now she survived. Um, and they found them on the side of the road, in a Jeep. Um,
Hmm.
and it's just a pretty messed up story. They still have not solved it. They thought it was her husband, but he's been, some people still think it was him, but he's like, no, no, he's trying to. He has some his own theories about who did it, and they've actually cleared him. And but yeah, if you listen to it, I mean, it's a horrible, horrible story, but they really need to solve this. So, but that was one of the things. I mean, podcasters, we've been supporting each other, and
Right.
no, and I wasn't joking when I said Ted's kind of the focal point for that, because
Yeah.
he's the one who reached out to us, and he's been connecting everybody, and so that's why you'll hear everybody talking about Ted. They're going, Ted's just awesome because he's doing that, and I couldn't tell you how many followers he's got on the Twitter just through
Hmm.
Ted.
Yeah.
And Ted shares the at Booking Armchair, and he shares at fat underscore daddy 73. So I
Yeah.
mean, he includes both accounts, and he's also thrown the cubicle chat in there as well because he's trying to
Hmm.
get this big community to grow and support each other. So definitely go support them. Go support the Dad World Order podcast. Go support the Wrestling Society podcast. I mean, and that's a brand new one that, to us anyway. And these are people who just happened to meet Dwaylen at SummerSlam,
Yep. That's right.
and they traveled from Georgia
Hmm. To
and
Nashville. Yeah.
to Nashville, and just listen to the show. I think one of their guys actually lives in Dallas,
Oh, okay.
and I'll have to listen to more episodes to kind of get like trying to remember all their names. But yeah, so definitely go check all them out, and because we get great support from them, so we try to support them as much as what we can, and
Yeah.
plus we get inspired by some of the things they're doing, and I get ideas from them, just maybe the way they're doing stuff that I'm like, you know what, I think I'm gonna suggest that to Dwaylen. Maybe we should try that. Dwaylen's done the same thing. He'll hear something, hey, I have an idea. Let's try this, you know. And there's been a couple of things that sometimes they
Yeah.
work really great. Sometimes, eh, well, at least we know not to do it again. That's it. Or maybe
Yeah.
we didn't do it, so but either way, also this week, take the time to, especially if you're in America, because this is, Thanksgiving is this is the American Thanksgiving holiday. I know other countries actually do have Thanksgivings throughout the year. Just remember what you're thankful for. Thankful for your family. Thankful for all of us, because Dwayne and I are definitely thankful for every single person who's listening here now. And,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yep.
um, because I know Dwaylen hears from people. They'll tell him, hey, I listened to the show. I've had people come, hey, I listened to your show. There, I've had people meet me at like NWF things. Hey, okay, yeah, I listened to like that episode. I had the wrestlers, the wrestlers, they listen to us.
Cool.
Which is something else we're definitely thankful for. I mean, we're
Yeah.
um, always grateful to have wrestlers and other wrestling personalities. Not necessarily wrestlers. I mean, we've had Roger Ruffin on the show. I mean,
Yeah.
the owner
Yeah.
of the NWF, we've had him on, and that helps us. I mean, we'd like to think that we're helping them as well.
Yeah.
And even though Roger Ruffin, I mean, he's a legend in the wrestling business, and we were just like, we got Roger Ruffin on the show, and
Yeah. I know, right?
yeah, and um, but either way, just go out, take care of each other. Let us know how we're doing,
Yep.
and listen to other podcasts as well.
Yeah.
So we all support each other. And that's really all I got to say. I went on kind of an editorial here at the end, but you know, um, you have anything else, bud?
No.
All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and call this one. We'll call it a wrap for this evening. And until we can talk again, probably Monday. Good night and God bless.